How does your ex feel about you? That's what we're going to be talking about in this video. And please stay tuned through to the end because we are going to be talking about some things here that might not seem very obvious to a lot of people. This might be new, especially if you're new to this channel for you. But also, we're also going to be doing a question and answer session towards the end of this video as well, too. So, if you're here on the live version of this video, please go ahead and drop a question, if you have one, into the chat section, and we'll go ahead and answer those questions towards the end of the video. Anyway, with that being said, hello. My name is Clay with modernlove.life, where we help you get the great loving relationship that you're looking for without having to play mind games, without having to play hard to get, and without having to pretend to be someone or something that you are not, because you deserve to be loved for the unique, amazing, and wonderful person that you are. Okay, let's go ahead and get into this. So, how do you know exactly how your ex feels about you? We've been talking about the importance of the emotional connection for quite a while on this channel now. I've told you that it's the most important thing to focus on, and I still, firmly adhere to that. But what exactly is this emotional connection? How do you know where it's at? How do you know what they're feeling towards you, right? And the truth is that there are, definitely lots of things that you could be paying attention to. But really, you're going to know, like in just a general sense, the more present you are in the interaction, the more you're going to be able to tell how they feel about you. And by present, I mean just being there in that moment, feeling the present moment wash over you, not hyper analyzing everything that they do and ruminating over it in your mind for days afterward. Like that's not what I mean by being present. What I mean is simply just, feeling the weight of your feet on the ground, or your bottom in the chair that you're sitting on, or noticing things like the way that the wind, goes through your hair or hits your face, or noticing the sunshine, or whatever it might be in that present moment for you, and just getting extremely present with that. Beyond that, though, as you become more present, you're going to naturally start to notice certain emotions or energies that are unfolding between you and your partner, you and your ex, or you and anyone else that you might be, engaged in some sort of interaction or conversation with. And as you do start to notice these things, you will start to just instantaneously get a sense, an intuition, if you will, of what that person is feeling. And that may not make a lot of sense to a logical mind, but if you start to do this, you may begin to experience this for yourself. Like, don't just try to rationalize it. Be like, well, how does that make sense? Is there a transmission of psychic thought or something like that? Just go ahead and try it, trust in it, and have the experience that you may need in order to validate this for yourself. Okay. Let's move on. Additionally, you can watch the actions that the other person has, right? Now, obviously, people can say certain things. They can say, hey, let's stay friends, or yeah, let's do this, or whatever. But it's their actions that are going to reveal to you more how they actually feel. It's like if you could imagine if you had a remote control and you just, hit the mute button on the other person. I don't know why I'm using my phone pretending it's a remote control. But if you just hit that mute button on the other person and just watched what they were doing, would these be the behaviors of someone who feels strongly towards you in maybe a positive way, a negative way, whatever, or someone who maybe has certain other types of feelings? And, I don't want you to just take it as like a really, crude, simplistic thing. Like, well, if they felt something for me, they would contact me, but they're not contacting me, therefore they feel nothing, right? Like, don't go that basic, because usually things aren't that basic. there could be all sorts of emotional reasons why they might not be contacting you. Maybe they feel guilty over some previous interaction that you had. I don't know what your previous interaction was. Maybe they feel awkward about that. Maybe they don't know how you're supposed to fit into each other's lives. I don't know. But just look at it within the context of what you know about your, previous interactions and what you know about this person and their emotions and all of that stuff. And ask yourself, okay, knowing them, and knowing what seems to be happening right now, what do I think is the emotional state that would explain that? And, maybe you're going to come up with one. Maybe you're going to come up with, a couple different ones. But what it's going to do is it's going to help you start to narrow that down. Okay. And then, of course, you can take other interactions or other behaviors that they have and start to use that to say, okay, maybe we have two things that could potentially signal this versus one thing, or zero things that could potentially signal this other possibility. And then you're going to start to really narrow them down. Okay. The next thing that we can do is to actually ask them how they feel about us or about anything, right? Now, of course, that's a pretty big ask, and it's a pretty big vulnerable move. And in a lot of ways, it really depends on where the connection is between the two of you. Like if the two of you are very standoffish right now, if they're very standoffish towards you and they're not very communicative towards you, maybe they're walling you out, probably not going to go over very well. I think that's pretty evident to most people. But if they're pretty open to you, then yeah, they probably might have the capacity to really take on that question and answer it honestly. If you want to, if you're like somewhere in the middle there and you are able to communicate with them, and you're just not at that place where it's like you can open up your heart and can tell each other everything, then what I'd really recommend is that you build some rapport first, get into that state of rapport that we talk about through some of those conversational tools that we've mentioned before. And then from that place of feeling emotionally connected, it can then make a lot more sense to say something like, hey, there's been something on my mind lately. While we're talking like this, I just wanted to ask you, how is it you actually feel about me? And then we can go ahead and take things to that next level. And I know that that is a vulnerable statement. And like we talked about yesterday, and I think in a couple other videos recently as well, too, vulnerability, it can feel very uncomfortable because you're exposing yourself and you are kind of putting yourself out there. And it would be easier, admittedly, if we could just, hide in our little shell and have them tell us everything and we don't have to put our neck out on the line, right? But unfortunately, that's really not how many things are going to work unless they are highly interested in you already, in which case you may not need this video. Um, but you're probably going to want to lead with vulnerability on your end. Now, again, I think we're at a point, or at least probably the people that watch these videos are at a point where we, for the most part, know that vulnerability is actually a good thing, right? Again, if this is news to you, you might want to Google something, but there's been a lot of conversation on the power of vulnerability and all that sort of stuff over the past, I don't know, 10 years or so. So I think that probably most of the people that would be interested in, watching this channel would probably be fairly up to speed on the fact that vulnerability is actually a good thing and it actually can create a positive emotional connection. So I would obviously encourage you to continue to share vulnerability. But it's totally fine to be vulnerable like that within the right context. You can ask other questions as well too. You can share what's going on with you. You can ask questions about how they're experiencing things, relate to that, build a great emotional web of connection between the two of you. But vulnerability is something that is lacking in many ways in our society these days. But it is something that can be very helpful in exploring what the connection is like between you and someone else. By the way, if you're liking this video, please make sure you hit that thumbs up button for the YouTube algorithm. Please make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell as well. And if you could also do me a favor and help me out with my low self-esteem by dropping a comment down below, that would also help a lot as well too. Just, let me know that you like these videos, that you want to see more of them, etc. And that will help boost me up, or at least help boost me up in the YouTube algorithm anyway. But anyway, moving right along, it's also important to know that how you feel about yourself is in many ways vitally important because it's projected out into your interactions with other people. If you are walking on eggshells, insecure, afraid, anxious, that's going to be reflected back to you in the behaviors of other people, right? Such as your ex. Either they will directly pick up on this, validation seeking behavior or neediness or clinginess or something like that. And they may do things like pull away, or they may do things like not open up to you because they're afraid that if they, give an inch, you'll take a mile or something like that. Or they might respond in other ways and such. Or even if you're able to really keep it under control because, you don't believe that it's projected out there and you think you can feel like an anxious bundle of nerves and, somehow still like have a great emotional interaction. Many times it will seemingly appear in your experience by you inventing things to be anxious, insecure, afraid, frustrated, angry about, etc. And you might say, okay, so just as an example, like my flavor, my flavor of choice back in the old days was anxiety. So even if there wasn't anything to feel anxious about myself, I could always find something, even if it wasn't actually there. I could say, oh, well, hey, I went out on a date with someone, or I met up with, my ex or something like that. But there was this like strange, it seemed to go okay, but there was this strange body language thing, or, she didn't kiss me at the end, or all sorts of things like that. And I could read into that and find something to feel anxious about. But, basically this is missing tile syndrome, as we've talked about in previous videos. And then what happens is that agitates your anxiety, or that agitates whatever your flavor of choice is: anger, fear, insecurity, frustration, etc. And then you then start to act from that place. You then start to, become overly needy because, you want validation that, hey, everything's going to be okay, or maybe something else. You maybe respond too aggressively because your anger has been triggered somehow. And then, you end up getting the results, the end result of that anger. You end up getting the results, the end result of the insecurity or the anxiety, etc. And that ends up doing more harm than good, right? So you want to really make sure you're focusing in on your way of being. And, by the way, if that is something that you want some help with, we, of course, do have that free subliminal recording. It's 8 hours long, intended to be listened to while you are sleeping. Do it for a month. You're going to sleep anyway. You might as well use that time to input some positive thoughts and beliefs and emotional relationships with yourself into your unconscious mind while you're sleeping. So, hey, why not try it out? Additionally, moving on, the next thing is, do they walk through open doors, right? So this kind of builds off of their actions, but, there are going to be potential open doors that you could leave for them to step through. Something like, hey, I'm going to XYZ this weekend. You should come, right? Do they come? Do they say, yeah, that sounds great. When is it? Do they return a text message when you text them? Do they return a phone call when you call them? Do they reciprocate when you open up and are vulnerable, right? These are open doors that we have. These are open doors that we can walk through. And if someone feels strongly connected to you and they value you, they will probably walk through these open doors, again, barring any other sort of, emotional thing going on. I mean, yeah, they could be angry at you, they could be upset at you, they could be unsure of themselves, they could be, really busy, they could be dealing with a family member who is in the hospital or whatever. But, all of those things aside, you never know what could happen. And if they walk through those open doors, then it's a pretty good indication that they feel very strongly about you in a positive way. Because we want to be closer to the people that we feel good around. We want to be closer to the people that we enjoy spending time with. We want to feel closer to the people that we value. And so you are probably putting out open doors already. So you probably don't need me to tell you how to do that, how to invite someone to do something or how to engage someone in a conversation or something like that. But you can go ahead and just put out those open doors and see if they walk through the open door. If they do walk through the open door, then that shows you, hey, they are probably interested in connecting with you, that they value you, because these days we're all short on time, or I don't know, maybe it's just me. It seems like everyone's always short on time. Whenever we whenever I talk to someone about their ex and how they they stop being responsive for a while or something, we have some strategies to get them to open up, and usually we get a typical response of, "Oh, sorry, I've just been really busy. Yeah, it's just this thing at work and blah blah blah." And I get it. We're all really busy. We're all juiced up on like 800 cups of coffee and have a to-do list a million miles long and everything like that. But if someone values you, they will make a genuine effort to try to connect with you and walk through an open door, right? Okay, so once again, if you have liked this video, please make sure you hit that thumbs up button for YouTube, and subscribe and hit the notification bell and drop a comment down below and all that. With that being said, let's go ahead and see what folks in the comments section are talking about. We will go ahead and start with our friend Rideshare Trickster. Again, thank you very much for the super chat. Again, I do not do these live streams for the super chats, but from what I understand, if you do give a super chat, then I'm bound under the social contract or whatever of the internet to respond to your questions. So I'm going to start with super chat questions, and then we'll move on to regular questions in the comment section. But Rideshare says, best coach on YouTube, 100% real and down to. Well, thank you so much for that. I appreciate the compliment. Is there an actual question? Actually, I don't see a question here, so I think you're just thanking me. Well, hey, thank you very much. Thank you for helping with my low self-esteem there. Let's go ahead and move right on then. We have Rick. Who says, Clay, I am here really early because I really wanted to ask some stuff about a breakup. And I guess I had, and I want you to answer some stuff. Okay. Part one. By the way, I really appreciate how we have recently normalized numbering your comments so that I can follow them and make sure that I don't accidentally miss one or something like that. So whoever started that, thank you very much. If you do drop a question, please go ahead and help me out, because I'm trying to operate this thing and talk to you and all that stuff live, and it can be kind of confusing for me sometimes. So please make it a little bit easier for me by numbering your comments. But anyway, Rick says, so first of all, she broke up with me about 1 month and a half ago. So what are we talking about? Like early June. And I'm doing pretty well right now, but she still comes up on my mind a lot. Okay, that's probably normal. I'm assuming you spent a good amount of time with her. That's normal that you still think of her. She called me on the day of the breakup, telling me that she didn't feel the chemistry, but she did say that she wanted to stay friends and even mentioned an activity that we could do together. Okay. I agreed, and we took a few weeks off. At one point, I accidentally unfollowed her on TikTok, and she was concerned and Still, now to this day, she still keeps the videos we made together on her TikTok. Okay. I went and asked her a few weeks after the breakup, asking if we could do this activity. I believe the same one you mentioned earlier, sometime that week. And she said that she couldn't, but said maybe the following week. Okay, so maybe she couldn't for, whatever reason. But she seems to be, suggesting going through that open door the following week. Anyway, the following week was 3 weeks ago from today, and she still hasn't said anything. Should I go out and say something or wait longer for her to reply? I've also changed a lot from the person ever since then as well, and I want her to see it. And since that was my first relationship, which helped me understand girls a lot better, and I changed my look. Okay, and then I think yeah, I think that's all the questions we have from Rick. Okay, so Rick, um, it's been a month and a half. It's been 3 weeks since she suggested doing whatever it was on that day that it wouldn't work out before. So she said, "Hey, let's try it next week," and then that was 3 weeks ago. So here's the thing, and this applies to everyone watching this video here. But you're gonna need to be okay with taking the initiative at first. Okay. This is probably not going to be anything new for a lot of guys out there, because for better or worse, society just expects guys to take the lead. This is equally true though for restoring a relationship if you are a woman. Okay, you're going to have to be okay with taking the initiative, even though society tells you to, wait for the guy to make the first move. If he really likes you, he's going to go for it, blah, 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 all that stuff. Right. But for better or worse, just generally speaking, women are going to wait for the man to make the move and to take the initiative. And so I think maybe she was wanting you to take the initiative. It's not to say that she was playing a game or anything. She was probably just hoping that you would take the initiative. And also, there's another dynamic at play here as well too, which is that many times after a breakup, your ex may not know exactly how to interact with you. They may be a little bit uncertain of that for a lot of reasons. There could be uncomfortable emotions between the two of you, maybe hurt or awkwardness or all sorts of other things. And they could be afraid to kind of step into that. They might feel guilt for breaking up with you or hurting you. And they might feel a little bit uncomfortable sort of going into that space thinking like, oh, like, hey, I broke your heart. Who am I to try to see you? Does that mean that I'm leading you on? Does that make me a bad person? Does that make me, someone that, XYZ, right? And so they could be going through that. Plus, additionally, there's also not really a good societal model for how we might be able to interact with each other after a breakup, right? So we have certain models on how we might interact with, our parents or our kids or our coworkers or our best friends or other people in our lives, right? But there's no real good model for our exes. We might see on TV and movies and stuff, we might see, oh yeah, you're supposed to hate their guts and keep a voodoo doll of them under your bed and, go at it at night with that pin, and all that sort of stuff because, they lied, they cheated, they broke your heart and all that. Maybe that makes sense if, whatever happened between the two of you was that hurtful and that dramatic. But what if the two of you just didn't have a lot in common? What if the two of you just lost the emotional connection between one another? What if there was just some sort of incompatibility or perceived incompatibility between the two of you? But you don't hate their guts. How are you supposed to interact with your ex? It's really unclear in our society. So there's a lot of awkwardness there. So in a lot of ways, you're going to have to be the one to take the lead. you're going to have to be the one to reach through that awkwardness. You're going to have to be the one to reach through all of the guilt, all of the shame, all of the hurt, all of the uncertainty and everything like that, and present them with an open door to see what happens next. So anyway, Rick, that's what I'd say, given what you've shared there. Thank you. Thanks for showing up to this live stream early, and I hope that helps you out. Next up, hold on. Okay, next up we have Leanne, who says, "How can I re-attract my ex-girlfriend when she says she has no feelings for me anymore? How do I make her see that I have changed and I am not toxic anymore? How do I make her see me in a romantic way?" Okay, so first of all, she has not really lost any romantic attraction towards you. You know, that's still there, most likely. Again, I don't know all the details about what happened between the two of you, but it's not just something you can flip off and on like a light switch. Okay. Um, what usually happens in these sorts of circumstances is that the attraction is still there. It's just that it's blocked by certain history, certain emotions, certain experiences, certain baggage that the two of you have between one another. You know, like if it were somehow possible for, you know, you to just wipe her brain of all of the memories that she has between, you know, whatever happened between the two of you, she'd probably still be attracted to you. She'd probably still find you attractive, you know, just as you might be able to think of some previous partner that you've had and, you know, whatever, maybe they hurt you, maybe they broke your heart, maybe you hate their guts or something. But if you were somehow able to wipe your own memories of that person, um, you could probably admit to yourself, okay, you know, I can see how that's an attractive person, you know, maybe physically, emotionally, personality wise or whatever. Okay. You know, if I didn't know that they had it in them to cheat on me, or if I didn't know that they had it in them to do whatever, I could still see them as an attractive person. Right. So usually that's what's going on. And you don't need to worry about like really re-attracting them or romance or anything like that. But really what you want to do is you want to focus on clearing out that baggage, clearing out that emotional blockage, clearing out all the history between the two of you, and really working through those emotional issues that might be standing between the two of you, like, you know, hurt, betrayal, pain, even just awkwardness as well too. And basically just presenting them with like an open door to connect emotionally. And as that happens, you know, you're going to start to connect a little bit more and more, and that's going to be very helpful for all of that. And then, you know, when it makes sense in the moment, um you know, just present them with another open door of something romantic, you know, maybe just sort of reaching out, um and stepping over a sort of comfort zone boundary and doing something that might seem outside of your comfort zone. Again, I don't know what your dynamic is with your ex, but if you're, for example, not, you know, making physical contact with one another, I don't know what happens when the moment is right. If you just, you know, interlock your hands with one another, or put your arm around them, or, you know, go in for a kiss, or whatever it might be that's just a little bit out of your comfort zone. And if you do that, see what happens, right? Again, that's an open door, which is what we talked about earlier, right? So when it comes to open doors as well too, you want to make sure that you try at least 2 times. Okay, the first time you might just catch them off guard. They might not have seen that kiss incoming, and it might have caught them off guard, or they might not have seen the flirtatious thing incoming, and they just might not know how to respond because they were just so unprepared for it in that moment, and they just sort of, you know, fumbled through it or something. But you know, I can guarantee you they're probably going to be thinking about it over the next several days or even weeks, right? And when the situation presents itself again for you to potentially, you know, step over that platonic line or whatever it might be, try it again. They've been thinking about it for a while, so they're probably going to be a little bit more receptive to it, and you never know what might open up as the result of that. So, you know, don't just give up after one time. You know, hey, you know, I went in for a kiss, they turned their head, I got the cheek or whatever, therefore they're not interested in me. Try it at least 2 times. You never know what might happen. I can tell you that from personal experience. Anyway, with that being said, once again, thank you so much for watching this video. Once again, if you do want to try out that subliminal recording tonight, there's going to be a link for it right over here. Go ahead and check it out. With that being said, thanks so much. Take care, and I will talk to you in the next video.